I want you to start off today by just closing your eyes for a second. Well, if you're driving, obviously keep them open.
Right, please keep your eyes on the road.
Yeah, safety first. But otherwise, close them tight. And I want you to imagine the color black. But, I need you to completely strip away all of your usual associations with it.
Because we are not talking about like a switched off room here.
Exactly. We aren't talking about an ending or an absence of light or some void where something has just been taken away.
We're envisioning a completely different kind of black, the fertile one.
Right. Think about the black of turned, really rich soil right before a seed cracks open inside it. Or think about that dark space behind your closed eyelids where your body still knows exactly where it is in a room.
Or think of the womb.
Yeah, because what we are exploring today is the idea that this specific fertile darkness was the original room. Before the Divine Mother was ever given a carved wooden face or a specific geographic race or a gold crown.
She was a color, and that color was black.
And that is a huge shift in perspective. Welcome to our deep dive today, by the way. We have a massive stack of research art history journals, archaeological records, some incredibly dense theological essays.
Very dense, yeah.
But they all trace this one incredibly stubborn, enduring historical thread. We are looking at the phenomena of the Black Madonna.
Which is just a fascinating figure. I mean, she survives empires, defies church authorities, and consistently reclaims her original dark hue, no matter how many times history tries to, scrub her clean.
So our mission today is to unpack why that is. Why century after century there's always someone who tries to lighten these sacred statues to match a whiter heaven, and yet the darkness just keeps fighting its way back to the surface.
And to really understand how this happens, we have to start by looking at the physical statues themselves.
Right, because looking at the historical accounts, these objects seem to actively resist being moved or altered, in ways that defy basic logic.
Oh, absolutely. The narratives surrounding them are full of this intense physical defiance. Let's look at Catalonia. There is a very famous statue at Montserrat known as La Moreneta.
Which translates to the little dark one, right?
Right. And the legend of her origin goes all the way back to Jerusalem. It claims the evangelist Luke actually carved her using Joseph's own carpentry tools.
Wow.
Yeah, and with Mary herself sitting as the model.
I mean, that is just an incredible origin story for a piece of wood. But then the 8th century Moorish invasion happens, and the faithful have to hide her in a mountain cave to protect her.
And she stays hidden for 80 years.
Which is long enough that literally everyone who actually knew who she was had died.
Exactly. Then, in the year 880, she comes back, but entirely on her own terms. The records say a group of shepherd children are drawn to a crack in the rock by this strange light and mysterious music.
As you do.
Right. And they find her sitting right there in the cave. Naturally, word gets down the mountain to the local bishop. And the bishop does what powerful authorities usually do when a sacred object is found in the wild.
He decides she needs to be brought down into his official cathedral where he can keep an eye on her.
Exactly. But the statue supposedly has other plans. The story goes that as they tried to carry her down the mountain, she started growing impossibly heavy.
Wait, really?
Yeah, heavier and heavier with every step until dozens of grown men couldn't move her another inch, so they are just stuck.
So what did they do?
They literally had to build the shrine around her way up in the mountains. The architecture of the church had to accommodate the sacred image, not the other way around.
That is wild.
And the refusal to be changed isn't just about her physical location, though. It goes much deeper. It goes right down to her skin.
Okay, yes, let's talk about the x-rays, because this blew my mind.
Right. So fast forward to the year 2001. Art conservators decide to take x-rays of La Moreneta. And they make a discovery that, theoretically, could have ended her status as a Black Madonna entirely.
Because underneath the black surface, they find that the original 12th century Romanesque oak, meaning she was carved in that sturdy medieval European style out of local wood, was actually a lighter honey color.
So she wasn't originally black. She had been darkened over the centuries by candle smoke and oxidizing varnish.
But the x-rays showed something else too, right?
Yeah.
The last full blackening wasn't an accident at all.
No, it was a deliberate layer of dark paint applied around the turn of the 19th century, painted directly over an earlier, lighter restoration attempt.
It's so counterintuitive. I mean, think about it. Imagine you have this incredible ancient piece of family furniture.
Okay.
You take it to an appraiser, and they say, hey, good news, we can strip away all this dark, heavy stain and show you the original light pine underneath. Most people would jump at that.
Oh, for sure.
But here, the conservators present this clear scientific proof, and the owners are saying, absolutely not. We put that dark stain there on purpose. Why would an entire community deliberately apply a dark layer and then refuse to lighten her now, even with X-ray proof?
Because 30 generations of lived devotion will always beat scientific accuracy.
Right.
These people had spent 1,000 years praying to the dark-skinned lady of the mountain. I mean, their own hymns call her the Dark One of the mountain range.
So for the people relying on her, the darkness isn't a mistake of chemistry.
Not at all. Her darkness is inextricably linked to the comfort she provides. It represents age, endurance, safety. They simply refuse to let her be anything else.
So we see this stubbornness in terms of geography, like refusing to be moved down the mountain, and color, refusing to lighten the wood. But what happens when that resistance is about surviving actual physical violence?
Well, that brings us to Poland, specifically the Black Madonna of Czestochowa at Jasna Góra. Her origin story is arguably even more intimate than La Moreneta's.
Oh yeah, this is the one painted on the tabletop.
Yes. Legend says Luke painted her on a cedar tabletop taken directly from the house of the Holy Family. The wood beneath the paint had literally held the mother's meals before it held her portrait.
That's amazing. But her story is defined by a violent refusal to be taken. In 1430, the monastery was raided. Looters loaded the painting onto a wagon to steal it, but the horses simply refused to move.
Right, and the looters get furious. They throw the painting to the dirt. One of the men draws his sword and slashes the Madonna's face twice.
And then,
The historical account notes that as he raised his blade for a third strike, he collapsed and died on the spot.
wow. And the scars from those first two sword strikes are still there today, which is crazy. Think about that for a second. Centuries of the most skilled restorers in the world have tried to paint over them to fix her face, but the scars keep resurfacing through every fresh layer of paint.
And look at what those scars represent for the people of Poland. This is a country that has been invaded, partitioned, and violently cut open repeatedly throughout its history.
Right, a pristine, untouched mother figure just wouldn't make sense to them.
Exactly. They crowned her Queen of Poland precisely because her face proved that survival and disfigurement could live in the same body. The scars don't cancel out her royalty. They are the entire reason she is revered.
That makes so much psychological sense. But, if you're listening to this and wondering how the Catholic Church let this slide, that's exactly what I was thinking.
That's a natural question.
If everyday peasants were fiercely defending these dark, scarred statues, what were the official bishops and popes doing? You'd think the authorities would want everything uniform, matching those neat, pale Renaissance paintings we see in museums.
It is one of the most surprising findings in the research. Not only did the official church not fight the local devotion to these dark statues, they actually provided the liturgical soundtrack for it.
Oh, right. The statue in Tindari, Sicily, it actually has an inscription carved right into its base. Nigra sum sed formosa. I am black and I am beautiful.
And those words are lifted directly from the Song of Songs, which is an ancient Hebrew text composed of erotic love poetry.
This is pretty bold for a church setting.
Hey! Oh, very. In that poem, a woman is completely unapologetic about her skin color, comparing herself to the dark tents of desert nomads. She is stating she's beautiful because of that darkness, not in spite of it.
And the church didn't try to hide this verse. For over a millennium, they used these exact words as antiphons during Vespers on the high summer feast of the Assumption.
Right, and for anyone who isn't familiar with medieval church practices, Vespers are the official evening prayers, and antiphons are those short, repeating, call-and-response chants the choir sings.
And the Assumption is this massive festival celebrating Mary being taken bodily into heaven. So the absolute titans of Western choral music, we're talking Palestrina, Victoria, Monteverdi, they all set these specific words to music.
So try to put yourself in that space. You have a congregation looking up at a genuinely dark-skinned statue of the Virgin Mary, and the choir is echoing off the stone wall singing, I am black and I am beautiful.
It's incredibly powerful.
It really is. Long before anyone was having modern debates about the historical ethnicity of a first-century Judean woman, the institutional church was literally handing Mary those words at her highest feasts, letting her claim the darkness herself.
Even with all that, though, in Europe, the darkness is still usually framed as a mystery that needs explaining. Like, it's the candle smoke, it's the old varnish, it's a divine miracle. But the research points out that in other parts of the world, her darkness wasn't a mystery to be solved, it was just the default.
Yeah, if we look at the highlands of northern Ethiopia to the ancient city of Aksum, We see a totally different paradigm. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church adopted Christianity around the year 330 AD under King Ezana.
So they've been doing this for a very long time.
17 centuries. And they have venerated a Mary who was never scrubbed by nervous bishops, never painted over, and never had to be rediscovered in a cave.
Because she simply always looked like the people who loved her. And the theological foundation here is fascinating. The texts bring up the Kebra Nagast, the Glory of Kings, which is Ethiopia's founding epic.
Right. It talks about the Queen of Sheba, Makeda, visiting King Solomon, and her son Menelik bringing the Ark of the Covenant back to Ethiopia. Tradition holds that the Ark is still there today, guarded day and night in Aksum.
But the theology of the Kebra Nagast does something incredible to bridge the Old and New Testaments. It names Mary herself as the true living ark.
Yes.
Okay, hold on. I need to push back on this because I am struggling to make the jump here based on the sources. The original Ark of the Covenant was a literal, physical box that held the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments. How does an entire theological tradition just swap a golden wooden box for a human woman? That feels like a massive leap.
Well, it is a leap if you're only looking at it through a Western literalist lens, but think about what the Ark functionally was. It was the vessel that carried the divine presence on earth.
Okay, I'm with you.
Just as the Ark held the Word of God carved in stone, Mary held the Word of God made flesh in her womb. In this tradition, Makeda, the powerful dark queen who outsmarted Solomon, foreshadows Mary. Scholars refer to this as a matrifocal theology.
Matrifocal meaning what exactly?
Meaning a society or a belief system that centers its lineage, its spiritual authority, and its core narratives on the mother's line rather than the father's. It relies entirely on female founders, female vessels, and maternal descents.
Ah, got it. So in that specific cultural context, blackness is the unquestioned origin point. It isn't an anomaly that you need a chemist to explain away with a lab report on oxidized varnish.
Exactly. It is just what the mother of the divine looked like from the very beginning. Without any need for apology and entirely bypassing the centuries of defensive scrubbing that her European counterparts had to endure.
Which brings us to the really deep historical why of all this. Why does this archetype of the dark, fertile mother appear everywhere? Across continents, across millennia?
Because the archaeological records argue that long before she was named Mary, she had other names, and she was worshipped in black materials long before cathedrals were even a concept.
Yeah, the physical materials chosen by ancient artists tell the entire story. Like, if we examine ancient Egypt, sculptors were carving statues of the goddess Isis in black granite and dark basalt.
And this was a highly deliberate choice to match the color of the Nile's flooded silt. The Egyptians literally called their land Kemet, which means the black land.
Because that black mud was the only reason anything grew. It goes back to that fertile darkness we talked about at the very beginning of the deep dive, the black soil before the seed opens,
Yeah.
carbon, decay, the basic building blocks of life.
Yes.
And if you look at the surviving statues of Isis nursing her son Horus on her lap, I mean, that is one of the oldest surviving devotional images of a mother and child on earth.
So when early Christians started commissioning images of Mary nursing Jesus, they were living in cities where everyone already knew exactly what that pose meant.
Right.
Historians have documented cases where statues quietly venerated for generations as the Virgin Mary were actually recycled, ancient statues of Isis and Horus.
They didn't even bother replacing them. It's like trying to pave a parking lot over a natural spring. You can pour as much concrete, or in this case, new religious dogma, as you want. But the water, that core human instinct to worship the fertile dark mother, is eventually going to crack the pavement and find its way back to the surface.
That hydraulic pressure of human belief is incredibly strong, because Isis wasn't the only one breaking through the pavement. In Anatolia and later in Rome, the goddess Cybele was worshipped as the Great Mother.
And her physical representation wasn't even a carved human figure, right?
No, it was a literal black meteorite, a piece of the dark night sky that crashed to Earth.
Wow. Then there is Artemis of Ephesus. Her statue was dark, weathered wood, covered in symbols of abundance. Some people historically thought they were breasts or eggs or even dates, but the core theme was just relentless fertility.
And here's where it gets really interesting regarding church history. Think about the Council of Ephesus. In the year 431 AD, a formal church council met to officially declare Mary as Theotokos, the Mother of God. And where did they choose to hold this pivotal council? In Ephesus.
The exact same city that had spent centuries kneeling before an ancient dark mother goddess. I mean, how does that actually work on the ground practically?
Well, the historical record shows this quiet, recurring loop. A pagan temple gets officially closed by imperial decree, but the local priests or the peasants can't quite bring themselves to destroy the goddess statue they've prayed to their whole lives, so they hide her.
They tuck her in a cave or bury her under a massive tree.
Exactly. Generations pass, the original religion is forgotten, and then somebody stumbles across her, a shepherd, a child.
And instead of the local authorities saying, oh, we found the old pagan statue from 500 years ago, it gets seamlessly folded into the new religion as a fresh miracle, the sudden miraculous appearance of the Virgin in the wild.
They are welcoming the old mother home under a new name, but she's still wearing the exact same color she always wore.
But the research doesn't stop with the mother figure. It points out that this fertile darkness eventually bled into the image of the sun, too.
Yeah, moving our focus over to the Americas, the colonial dynamics bring this out explicitly. In the town of Esquipulas, Guatemala, there is a crucified Christ carved from cedar in 1595 by a sculptor named Curio Catano.
And over 4 centuries, largely from candle smoke, it is darkened to a glossy black.
But the art historians think this was a deliberate psychological choice from the start. The sculptor was trying to bring a largely indigenous congregation into a totally foreign faith. He knew exactly which face they were actually going to trust.
A similar narrative unfolds in Portobello, Panama. Sometime in the mid-1600s, a wooden Christ with a dark face washed ashore. The population there was made up largely of enslaved and formerly enslaved Africans.
And when they found this statue, they saw something the colonial European world had never offered them. A suffering god who actually looked like they did.
There's an incredibly visceral detail in the research about the pilgrims who traveled there today. Every October, men carry him through the streets in an old penitential rhythm, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back.
That rhythm is the physical manifestation of endurance. A dark-skinned, suffering savior makes perfect sense to a marginalized people who have survived immense trauma themselves. This figure asks nothing of them that they haven't already endured in their own bodies.
Okay, this brings us to the final and honestly the most mind-bending idea from our sources today. We need to talk about the Veil of Veronica.
To set the scene, the traditional Christian story takes place on the road to Golgotha, the hill outside Jerusalem where executions were held. A woman named Veronica pushes through the violent crowd and uses her cloth to wipe the blood and sweat from Jesus' face.
And when she pulls it back, a miraculous imprint of his face remains on the fabric.
Right, and in some later historical paintings of this relic, the imprinted face on the cloth is entirely dark, even black.
And the tidy, official explanation from art historians is the same one we've heard all day. Aged pigment, old varnish, candle soot.
Right, on a literal chemical level, that is highly probable. But the theological essays we are looking at ask us to sit with an older, deeper archetype that the empire never quite managed to suppress.
Okay, wait, I need to stop you right there because I have a really hard time buying this based on just the historical facts. We were talking about the Veil of Veronica, an artifact historically linked to Jesus, a first-century masculine figure. To suddenly claim this is a secret imprint of a pagan goddess feels like a massive historical stretch, bordering on a conspiracy theory. How do the sources actually justify that leap without sounding crazy?
It's a completely fair reaction. If you look at it strictly as a historical event, it doesn't make sense. But the authors are analyzing this through the lens of myth and archetype. They propose that the veil did exactly what a veil physically does. It removed a mask.
Okay.
By wiping away the sweat and the blood, the text argues it revealed that the divine energy walking that hard public road was actually the original Dark Mother, returning once again.
Wow. So they are saying it's not a historical portrait of a foreign king, and definitely not the pale, gold-haired figure of European sanctuaries. It's the original, mother before father, leaving one more black imprint of herself for anyone paying close enough attention to recognize the pattern.
Exactly. It challenges the very foundation of how we view these images. It suggests that every time a restorer picked up a sponge or a scalpel to scrub away the blackness, they were missing the point entirely. The blackness was never a disguise. It wasn't just accidental soot from a candle. It was the base state of the divine.
It is what is left when all the borrowed decorations, the gold leaf, the imported silk, the jeweled crowns finally rot and wear away. Underneath all of that temporary wealth is that patient, unbothered, fertile dark.
That archetypal mother keeps returning to the surface the way water finds its way downhill. It is where she has always lived. Every time a new generation tried to paint over her to make her fit a more modern, sanitized narrative, they were unwittingly proving just how much raw truth was sitting underneath the imported fabrics of newer empires.
Which brings us all the way back to where we started, that original room, the fertile dark of the soil waiting for a seed. Today we've traced this single color across continents, through mountain caves, and over centuries of fierce resistance.
Yeah, we've seen wooden statues grow impossibly heavy to defy ambitious bishops. We've seen paintings seemingly scar the men who try to destroy them.
And we've seen entire marginalized congregations find themselves in a God who shares their darkness.
It forces us to look at human history not just as a flat timeline of events, but as a series of deep, vertical layers. And sometimes, the most important truth isn't the shiny, newly painted layer currently reflecting the sun on the surface. It's the ancient instinct stubbornly persisting underneath.
Which leaves us with a massive question to chew on as you go about your day. If history spent centuries trying to paint a whiter heaven over the original fertile darkness of our oldest spiritual instincts, what other fundamental truths about our shared human history are currently buried under a layer of restored paint, just waiting for the varnish to wear off? Keep your eyes open, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.